Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about this massive, legendary winter storm as I described it, and there's a few people that were, obviously questioning whether or not this thing actually is going to be of that status. It will be. It's looking very incredible. Its impacts are going to be, again, from coast to coast. The amounts of snow that could fall from this are going to be ridiculous. The amounts of rain that could fall from this are going to be ridiculous, and the danger that comes with this system is also going to be uncomfortably high in terms of severe weather. Obviously, the blizzards conditions, if not just a widespread blizzard across the plains. But there is going to be some benefits to the system, like the very heavy snow it could drop across the western United States, increasing the snowpack there. It's already running a lot above average, especially for California, Nevada, Washington, Oregon. A few states that are below average include maybe Colorado and especially New Mexico and Arizona when it comes to the snow. They'll be getting some snow as well, though. Let's start talking about this. We have a ton of stuff to go over, and I don't want to make this any longer than we should. So I'm going to start off by talking about the Northwestern United States. So looking at the GFS model, I'll show you both models because there are some differences between them. I won't show you both models for the Northwest and Southwest individually. I'll show you the different amounts, but I won't play out the different models because for the Northwest and Southwest, the models are actually in decent agreement, and that makes sense. They're the least furthest out. You're right. The system is pretty much making impact already onto the coast here, so the differences between the models only get bigger once you get to the regions like the North Central United States and whatnot. But looking at this, obviously, as I mentioned, we already have rain and snow moving in, and this will continue. You can see much of Washington getting in on snow, rain. Again, the lower elevations are going to be seeing some rain, but it is cooler than average, so there will be some locations that may typically see rain, but they're going to be seeing some rain snow mix. Notice this thing kind of takes a slide down towards the south, so this is what makes this a lot more prolonged than any other system we've seen really this past season. Most of them just kind of push through the mountains and move out into the plains within a day and a half. This one kind of slides down to the south. So notice Idaho doesn't get in too much on this. Western Montana doesn't really. But you will see that these areas still get some snow once the system moves out to the central United States. Notice by Sunday, so all of tomorrow, Saturday, will be rather snowy and active for the West and Northwest. But by Sunday, this thing is pretty much moved out of Washington, moved out of southeastern Canada, southwestern Canada. It's still snowing across Oregon, Idaho. You can see into Nevada and into Montana. We do see some light snow potentially starting to spread as the system builds towards the north. You can see right here. But again, I would say the majority of the heavy snow will either fall maybe across extreme eastern Wyoming and Montana if this blizzard kind of catches foot of that, or where the system makes landfall. So by Wednesday, late Tuesday, this thing's pretty much out of here for a good part of the Northwest. Notice we have a separate system moving in that could cause some more showers and the backwash from this blizzard kind of pushing into eastern Montana and eastern portions of Wyoming and maybe into even Alberta and Saskatchewan. So total snowfall by the time this is all said and done. Again, this thing will be done by Thursday. It's already moving in, so this thing is really not, it's really not that far out. And notice that some of the snowfall amounts are obviously pretty high, especially the further south you go when that system slows down. So northern California, northern Nevada, southern Idaho, southern Washington, some really good high amounts. But even further north, you can see some pretty good amounts, including portions of Montana. And again, the eastern portions getting the doozy when it comes to that. National Weather Service, you have a lot of warnings up, mainly in the form of winter, because in the form of kind of winter advisories and warnings and watches, because the rain, while it will be there, won't be significant enough to cause flooding really. But yeah, some of these snowfall amounts, especially across the areas near the coast where it will be snowing, are going to be pretty big, 3 to 5. So you can see easily pretty much a foot of snow falling there, and across the Cascades, some peaks getting a bit more there. Let's move on towards I want to show you the European snowfall amounts for the Northwest, because they don't really differ that much, but I want to show that just in case. So again, the Northwest, you can see right there, you can see that the Montana and Wyoming get in on those snowfall amounts much later on, so not right away, more towards Wednesday and Thursday, but the eastern areas or the western areas of the Northwest get in on this a bit quicker. So let's go back now and start talking about the southwestern United States. So, well, I already have the snowfall pulled up. But this is what the snowfall will look like through by the time this whole system's done, right? So by Thursday, it's out of here for most of the southwestern United States. But look at some of these snowfall totals. The Sierra could really get in on some very, very heavy snow in Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, Arizona, even New Mexico. Though the amounts will be lighter for New Mexico, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because the snowpack is significantly behind compared to what it is compared in the Sierra, where the snowpack there is almost approaching in some areas 200% of what it should be, which is obviously good, but you know, they don't necessarily need much more snow now compared to the south here. But notice there's that system moving in tomorrow. It is full swing, and into Saturday and Sundays probably where the heaviest, most intense will be falling for the northern areas of California, Nevada, and then pushing into southern and central areas. Saturday into Sunday probably the most intense, and then moving into Nevada, Utah by late Sunday into Monday, into Arizona, New Mexico by more of late Monday into Tuesday, and into Colorado. You can see it kind of weakens as it drags through the mountains before it picks up more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. But again, I showed you those snowfall amounts from the GFS. The National Weather Service has some, obviously, winter warnings issued for this, and some of these snowfall totals here are going to be, let's say, nothing short of very impressive. So I want to show you something because I saw a graph here earlier. Yeah, look at some of these passes here. Sonora Pass, 48 to 60, 48 to 60. I wouldn't be surprised to see some even 72-inch amounts or more. And yeah, quite frankly, a very, very, very impressive snow system. Look at some of these projected precipitation amounts here in terms of the rain and snow. Mammoth Lakes, Shaver Lake, 6 to 8 inches, an equivalent of rainfall, but that would obviously be falling mainly in the form of snow. So yeah, a lot of precipitation. European model, you can see, shows a lot as well, mainly in the form, obviously, of snow up here. Assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, some of this may be a bit fluffier, so some of these amounts may be a bit underdone. Still, though, across the peak areas, it shows, over 50 inches, so that's definitely impressive. Notice the Wasatch, well over a foot of snow, the Bitterroots as well. This thing gets its legendary kind of status across more of the central United States. So this is where I want to focus my main attention and probably spend the longest time talking about the areas here, but also the Northeast. So notice as this thing moves out or moves closer and closer to the Midwest, we don't see anything for the next few days. Maybe a few scattered showers as you saw areas of precip. But by Sunday and into Monday, we see southerly winds, especially for the western areas here, that will increase the temperatures. However, not enough to produce rain on a widespread scale. Notice there is some showers that pop up. There are some showers that pop up, but a lot of them are already kind of transitioning over to snow across the Dakotas. And even areas that start off as rain initially will probably convert over to snow pretty quickly. Notice this thing explodes. It's like a bowling ball. I mean, it's a little barreling ball right here, 986, producing very heavy snow. This is now into Tuesday, so probably early Tuesday morning is when you'll be seeing the impacts initially beginning at the intense level. Because Tuesday, late Monday, there will be some precip, not intense yet. And then notice this thing obviously explodes. So not only are the winds with this very strong, but the snowfall rates are very strong. Notice the cold front is also very, very powerful. It has strong precipitation rates involved with this. Wisconsin, Minnesota. Again, the GFS is one model that shows, and this is where the models start showing a lot of differences. The European doesn't show much snow for, say, cities like Minneapolis, but the GFS does. It shows a lot of more cold air and that cold front converting into snow. The European does not. Which one is going to be right? That, we're still a little bit away from this. On Wednesday, Thursday, notice rain transitioning into snow across Michigan, Wisconsin, and this thing seemingly starts to kind of weaken. You can see it becomes more sheared out, becomes more, I guess, vertically oriented, but you can see that these areas of showers continue, and the European model really differs from the GFS here as it keeps it stronger and more impressive longer, while the GFS still shows a very impressive snow system and rain system. As you look at the total rainfall amounts, they're also going to be pretty significant. The European takes that to a little bit of a new level. So looking at these snowfall amounts, you can see, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, which a lot of this will be fluffier, it shows many areas approaching 2 feet, and you can see a lot of Minnesota, Wisconsin still being covered in on this, and I'll show you the kind of the differences here. So the European takes the system right through the Southwest, not much difference differences there, some smaller ones, but notice that what it does is, again, explodes that system across the plains, similar to the GFS, very similar in placement. It's a bit slower according to the European, so you can see it takes its time here, and while it does weaken, you can see that what the European does, it kind of takes these little batches of rain, and that kind of get reinforced from this pull that this low pressure has, and you can see it sends it back into these areas. So there's going to be periods of very heavy snow still occurring well into Thursday, while the GFS at this point is pretty much wrapping the system up, which results in essentially more icky weather for a prolonged period of time with slightly heavier snowfall amounts. Again, the differences aren't really that big in terms of the total snowfall. As I showed you, the GFS, while it's a bit of a calmer scenario, it's hard to call that a calm scenario because a lot of the snow is still very, very heavy, a foot plus, and again, the winds are going to be fierce with this, which is why I'm calling it a blizzard. Do note that the European, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't convert a lot of that cold front rain into snow initially, and the way Minneapolis gets in on that snow is from those secondary bursts later on in the storm system cycle. So that's something we have to note for and keep an eye on for. But again, whichever model you look at, it looks very, very impressive. And I believe I could look at the GFS on here with the Kuchera ratio. So this is kind of the one that takes into account the temperatures at which the snow is falling for, and gives us a better estimate based on that. So yeah, I mean, areas where it's going to be really cold and we have a lot of precipitation, you could see some amounts, approaching maybe even 2 feet plus according to what the GFS shows. And look at this broad scale event. I mean, Montana getting in on this, Idaho. I mean, a lot of areas just covered, and this includes southern Canada. So folks in Brandon, Winnipeg, you will be getting in on this as well to a certain level with a lot of cold air and strong winds there. So that's the GFS. I did show you the European. Again, the National Weather Service does have some watches already issued for these areas. Notice across the Dakotas where they have more confidence. So let's take a look at Bismarck. Let's see their forecast. Again, it's still pretty far away, several days out, but they have, again, the models are in relatively good agreement, as I've been saying, so they're comfortable issuing this winter storm watch. And you can see that they issue 6 to 14 inches. Winds could gust as high to 40. If they're saying that now, most likely, I believe there could be some, widespread blizzard warnings issued. And you can see winter storm likely next week. This one would be a very, very big one, and they're several days out. Potential for 6 inches more of snow is already high here. So again, they call me for the storm, and that's very widely put because this system, again, is going to be extremely, extremely impressive, no matter which model you look at. I could even show you the Canadian here, and its snowfall amounts are even more impressive than what the GFS and the European were showing. Again, the Canadian, isn't necessarily the best model to look at, but it's always kind of like that little, if it supports the message, if all models, the GFS, European, and the Canadian agree on a system, that's kind of a dream come true for meteorologists, as it makes forecasting a lot less tricky. It takes out a lot of the guessing game. And you can see it's a very similar system, that very similar fashion, those very strong winds. There's a high pressure coming in from the north, so that gradient tightens, very strong winds, classic blizzard essentially. And you can see that the Canadian, kind of like what the European does, sags the system towards the south, while the GFS disintegrates it a lot more quickly. Let's move on to the south central United States. This is an area where I am concerned about more than I am, excited for. I mean, I like snow, so that's why I'm kind of jealous of the north central United States. I love the snow, so I'd want some of that. But here is where things could get a bit dangerous and a bit nasty. So notice there's that system, right? Again, some smaller impacts, some showers could be occurring through the weekend, but the biggest noticeable difference you'll see from this system first will be the winds that are going to be turning from the south, and that will be bringing a lot of warm air, relatively speaking, into the pretty far north, right? So there could be 50, 60. Matter of fact, let me just show you this. It'll definitely be noticeable, especially on Tuesday, you can see for a good part. And near the Gulf Coast states on Tuesday, there could be some 70s, maybe even some lower 80s across southern Texas. But with a system of this size and this strength and this magnitude and such cold air behind it, such warm air out ahead of it, there's a strong concern for a good threat of severe weather. Tuesday is looking like a very significant day. If you recall, on Monday, there was Storm Prediction Center issued a slight already, but they kind of retracted that because it basically it doesn't look as severe maybe on Monday to Tuesday as much as Tuesday into Wednesday and then Wednesday into Thursday. So again, right here you can see those storms taking track across Arkansas, Missouri. That may just look like heavy rain, but that's most likely some area, a good area of severe weather, and this extends all the way to the Gulf Coast. Looking at the Storm Prediction Center, notice on Tuesday they already have an enhanced, and day 4, day 5, so very far out, and they're already pretty confident on which area will see some severe weather. And then day 6, you can see is more closer to the Gulf, but you can imagine this thing will get expanded as we get closer towards the system. There are some disagreements still, mainly in form, not between the models, but just like each model run, the models kind of take what they've been doing for at least the past day. They've been kind of slowing this thing down, which isn't necessarily good, as that's going to be jumping pretty much a lot more precipitation than previously thought across some areas. Notice, obviously, once this clears out, there will be a bit of cool air left in its wake, and that will kind of intensify, sagging further and further south. So that could potentially lead to some sort of a snowstorm developing further south, maybe even affecting the deep south here. So we'll have to keep an eye on for that. In terms of the total precipitation for the south central United States, there it is. You can see pretty significant. And again, under any thunderstorms that occur, if there's especially several waves of them, you could expect 2, 5, maybe even 6 inches of rain. It's not out of the question. We typically see that type of stuff during these type of events. Northeastern United States. Let's take a glance at you because, oh boy, unlike the north central United States, where it's pretty much confirmed there will be a big system delivering a lot of precipitation, mainly in form of snow there, here it's a lot bigger of a question. Right? So the GFS, this isn't the system. This is a little intermediate system, sorry, that could be occurring on Sunday, late Saturday into Sunday. So if you're watching from those areas across the Northeast, you could be seeing some snowflakes flying across, maybe not New York City, but Hartford, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Providence. Right? You'll be seeing some snow there. Nothing too significant, but several inches. In its wake, a lot of cold air moves in here, and you can see the GFS shows that. So when that system, that big one we're talking about, moves in, a lot of that will initially be falling as snow. But look what the GFS has been doing for the past several model runs. It's kind of disintegrating that system. It doesn't even reach the Northeast, really. There's pretty much no impacts. A little bit of Pennsylvania gets some snow, maybe into Maryland, maybe into Washington, D.C., Delaware, and then that's pretty much it. And you can just see more reinforcing cold air pushes in, and some of these anomalies are going to be pretty cold. Now, we turn towards the European model, which has a completely different story on the northeastern segment of this system. So again, up until the north central United States, they're in relative agreement. Obviously, there's some differences because, well, they end up those differences end up growing as the system goes towards the northeast. But again, there's that system, there's that cold front, and you can see already what's different with the European. It takes a slower scenario. The system, the cold front, has a lot more time to kind of intensify and grow, and a lot of that shoves its way into the northeast. Again, potentially a freezing rain type event with a lot of that warm air riding over that cold stubborn air at first, but then this thing takes a separate kind of track and goes offshore, maybe developing into some sort of a nor'easter. And look, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, western Massachusetts, Maine all get a very, very big snowfall event out of this. Not the coastal areas, at least that's not what it looks like as of now. That could still change, obviously, but according to the European model, I mean, we see some significant snowfall amounts across the northeast, potentially especially the upstate areas, well into the 2-foot range. Pennsylvania also widespread, maybe 12 inches. Pittsburgh, again, similar, maybe 6 to 10 inches according to the European model. Now, stark difference if the GFS were to come true. This is what it showed earlier on in the day, the GFS. And then later on with this most recent model run, it's kind of doubled down on those amounts. And a lot of this comes from that little first system that we're going to be seeing in the next few days there. Notice, right? So the additional snow that comes from this big one is really not that much. While across the west and north central United States, it's pretty significant. So that's the difference for the Northeast. Again, if you're asking which model I'm leaning towards right now, it's a toss-up. I would say it's probably, I don't really see the GFS scenario coming true to, I think it's going to be a mix in between at the end. There's probably going to be some snow. I don't really see the European model necessarily being all right as well. It's kind of, I think it's not really going to be, between one or the other. I think there's going to be characteristics that are picked up from both, and then they're going to agree on a scenario. As we saw kind of with this other first system, it kind of was a mix of both what the European and GFS were showing. Canadian model, there's that little system Sunday and Monday, but with regards to that giant system, you can see it introduces a bit more precipitation than the GFS, and you can see it also starts to intensify that system into a coastal system, which is more characteristic of what the European was showing. something. And yeah, the snowfall obviously would be very significant if this were to occur. So, the European, Canadian do agree, the GFS isn't, so I would lean slightly towards the European and Canadian, but again, we've had several times where this, has happened, that type of agreement, and it never really came true. So let's take a look now at the southeastern United States. So if you live across the southeast, this is your, now your segment that we're going to be talking about. And again, I won't be zooming in on this because this model here, or this website, divides the southeast into like 3 different regions. So I just kind of gonna talk about your area, but I'll be showing you the whole map. Notice the next few days relatively quiet, but on late Sunday and into Monday, there could be some sort of an event that starts occurring here that could be bringing some showers, some storms, nothing severe, but definitely some rain anticipated, and that moves off, so you get a nice few days of clearance, nothing really major. And on Tuesday and by Wednesday, you can see this thing starts approaching Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia. And again, if the GFS is right, this thing will be more of a quick mover, quick system, and then that's done. The precipitation amounts would be lighter with such a scenario, and again, mainly in the form of rain. For the southeast, you can see lighter. Again, they're still pretty significant, but they're lighter as compared to what the European shows. You can see they're a lot more significant. We have amounts that are ranging well into the 5-inch range here, especially on top of that rain that we're going to be seeing the next few days. And I'll just show you the European and how it makes this cold front a lot more slower. So again, there that is, by similar timing, instead of in terms of its movement, approaching the Mississippi River by early Wednesday morning, and then pushes to the southeast. But you can see it slows down, re-intensifies. It goes through several phases there. Not necessarily severe weather, but just a lot of rain, and that slugs off the coast. Again, mainly rain for you guys. And there could be maybe some severe weather towards, say, Florida, but for the most part, it's going to be, again, a heavy rain event. The GFS, a bit less of a heavy rain event. European, a lot, like a big doozy of an event in terms of the rainfall. So, those are the differences for the southeast there. And again, the severe weather threat for the southeast isn't really going to be that significant. Notice on Wednesday, we do see some of that, maybe, pushing into Mississippi, Alabama there, Florida. So that's definitely something we'll have to watch for, but I'm probably more concerned about the kind of these areas further out towards the south central United States as opposed to the southeast. As a little quick overview, again, yeah, this thing's going to be massive. I mean, it's going to be incredible. The amount of snow that's going to fall across the southwest, the amount of snow it's going to bring towards the north central United States. Look at that thing. That thing's like a classic monster system with that powerful cold front, very heavy snow, and yeah, it will just barrel through. Again, whether or not the European or GFS has more agreement, we'll have to wait and see. Because if it's a European, this develops into another system that just slams into the south and northeast, delivering, another kind of equally as big system. So potentially a 3-part to this, if you will, 4 parts. The west and its relative incredible snow and rain, the north central United States with that blizzard, the south central with that severe weather, the southeast with that severe weather, but mainly the heavy rain event, and then that northeast with that potentially incredible snow event if the European were to hang on to that, which we'll have to wait and see if it does. That's basically it for today, guys, though. I just wanted to give you an update on this. And again, we'll be tracking the system as it moves in. It's already beginning to do so across the west. Prepare, across these areas because you'll be getting a lot of snow here. Most of these passes will probably be shut down or closed, impassable. I mean, there's no way they'll be able to keep up with this. Look at some of these amounts. Tonight, 1 to 2, nothing. Look at this, 24 to 30. 30 to 36, 7 to 11. That's the mountains for you guys. So if you live across these areas, don't think this is really going to be passable, or driving. You're going to be able to drive through that. There's just no way. That is definitely something you will have to keep in account. Good news is once that passes, there could be a few days of nicer weather. It'll be cold, but at least it won't be super snowy. And again, there's some watches already getting issued across southern Utah, Nevada. Again, it's not limited to California. I mean, look at Nevada and you click on Austin. Let me just click there under a winter storm warning. Further north, you can see maybe some lighter amounts. But, 2 to 4, 2 to 4. That's quite a significant event there again. And this isn't even a mountainous area there. I believe that I clicked on. All right. So that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.